My name's Darity. I'm Carly's sister. Carly and I were both cheerleaders in high school. Carly was homecoming queen. Carly was just a fun, outgoing girl, loved life, loved her friends and family, always surrounded by people, the center of attention. She was that girl that everyone wants to be.
My name is Joan, and I'm Carly's grandmother. I've been very close to her from the time she was born. I live here in Anaconda, so I've seen all her activities. As a grandma, we watch our kids growing up and think how great they're doing and what they have ahead of them. And to see what happened in just an instant to change a life like it has is just unbelievable.
I knew this was a serious crash. I knew that it could quite possibly be a fatal crash. That night, it had just begun to snow, and the snow was melting on the road, but on the bridge deck it was still slush. When the vehicle went across the bridge deck, it lost control on that slush and then struck the guardrail. When it struck the guardrail, the vehicle rolled over the guardrail and began to tumble down the bank. It came down the bank in this area here, but Carly Moodry was thrown clear across the road. As I photographed the crash scene, I paid particular attention and photographed all the seatbelts. I also photographed the back of the truck and the cab, and the cab of the truck was fine. It was relatively intact. Geez, if these guys were wearing their seatbelts, they wouldn't have been thrown from the vehicle, and they wouldn't be hurt the way that they were.
When the phone rang, I answered it. It was St. James Hospital. The nurse told me that Carly was in an accident and we needed to get there right away.
When we got into the emergency room at the hospital, utter terror, what I saw, horror.
Her eyes were so black and blue, and her head was so swollen. It scared me to death to see my daughter like that.
Right away I just grabbed her hand and whispered in her ear that Mom and Dad were there.
They told me that she needed to be life-flighted to Missoula, so I flew with Carly over here. I was alone in the waiting room when Dr. Brewington came in, not having any idea that her injuries were so serious. When he came in, he told me, this is very serious. Between 1 and 10, she has a 10 head injury.
The doctor said, we're fighting the clock here. You need to let me know right away whether you want us to get her comfortable and to let her pass, or to get her prepped for surgery.
I remember just thinking, my daughter's possibly going to die, and how will I go on without her?
We needed to make some decisions right away. After just thinking about this for just a matter of seconds, we told them, let's go ahead and try to save her. I needed to let my mom know and ask her to contact my brothers and sisters and, tell them we needed their prayers.
At surgery, her injuries were so severe that it mandated removing most of one side of her skull just to gain access to the very large blood clot that she had overlying her brain and in her brain. That in itself was enough of an injury that would have kept swelling and taking her life had we not done that. The swelling was so severe, however, that we could not get that part of her skull back on safely without killing her. And so indeed that part of her skull was left off and stored for later replacement. And so she lived for the next 6 months or so without half of her skull.
Carly did survive the surgery, and not long after we were allowed to go in and see her. And she looked every bit as bad, if not worse, than she did right after the accident. Just thought to myself, no mother, father, sibling should ever have to see someone they loved as much as we love Carly looking like that.
Because Carly wasn't responding, we were told that Carly may have to be put in a rest home until she was able to go to community for her rehabilitation. When I heard that word, rest home, I thought I was going to collapse. I could not picture my daughter in a rest home. And that's when I had my first serious breakdown.
The doctor said that we're going to have to start looking for a rest home. She would have to go to a rest home. And it was that very day that she started to show some reaction. Her eyes were swollen shut. I mean, she couldn't see us. Didn't know what we were doing or anything. The first thing that Darity said was, "Do you want to wear my ring?" And she held out a ring finger. And then, "Well, Carly, if you want to say yes, hold up one finger. If you want to say no, hold up two fingers." And she did it. She responded to us. We just started jumping and screaming and hollering. The nurses came in, thought there was something wrong, and the nurses were absolutely amazed too that she was responding. It was the next day, Dr. Allen said, "We'll send her to rehab."
When I first met Carly, she was 19 at the time of the accident. It was like starting her life over again. She had to relearn how to eat and swallow, how to dress herself, how to take care of all her needs, how to walk. At this point, 3 years later, she's working on her communication, being able to read, to write, and to communicate when in conversation. She has difficulty still with completing her sentences or finding the words she wants to use. And it's taken her 3 years to get to this point.
I have spent hours teaching Carly her alphabet, how to read, how to write, and just how to talk. Now our family has changed so much. We have had to leave our home. We live in a small apartment. Our life has been surgeries, doctor's appointments, therapies. All our lives revolve around Carly.
If only Carly had put her seatbelt on, this never would have happened. Sure, she may have gotten some broken bones, but her brain would have been okay. And she wouldn't have put herself and her family through this.
In Montana, with our fatality crashes, about half of those are alcohol involved, and the other half are seatbelt involved. And it just seems to me that if we could get people not to drink and drive and to buckle up, about half the lives every year in Montana would be saved.
When you either make the decision to drink and drive, or you make the decision not to put your seatbelt on, then you have rolled the dice with permanent consequences. You are making the decision that you are going to change both your life and your family's life forever.
When someone gets into the car without their seatbelt on, they're taking their whole family for a ride. And don't let this happen to you. Wear your seatbelt. Don't do this to your family.
This could have all been avoided if Carly would have just wore her seatbelt that night. You never think it will happen to you. You never think it will happen to anyone you love. And just by one decision, your whole life can be changed.
I made a choice not to wear my seatbelt, and I have suffered because of it, and so has my family. I love you so much.